All right, let's jump right into it. Imagine this. You're out in the English countryside, stars are out,
Nice and peaceful.
totally. And suddenly, this cluster of lights just cuts across the sky, moving in ways no airplane could.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what a bunch of people, dozens of people, said they saw back in 2007 in Oxfordshire. It got big, fast, and it's become, one of those classic UFO stories. What do they call it? UFO lore.
UFO lore, yeah, exactly. And this case is really interesting because it wasn't just one person seeing something for a quick second.
Right. Right.
This was September 14th, 2007, and reports were coming in from all over the countryside describing pretty much the same thing. It wasn't just some local thing. This hit the national news.
It was a big deal, yeah. And it wasn't just a blurry photo or like one person saying, I think I saw something. We're talking tons of people, lots of details from regular folks, too.
Exactly. And their descriptions, they're different, of course, but there are these really interesting similarities. So some saw triangular formations of lights.
Triangular formations, okay.
Right. Yeah. And others said it was like this big disc-shaped object.
Like a classic flying saucer.
Kinda, yeah. Some of the lights were moving all over the place erratically, and others just seemed to hover silently.
Like they were just checking things out.
Right, exactly.
It sounds like something out of a movie, but for these people, it was real. One account that really gets me is from a retired pilot.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, think about it. This is someone who spent their life looking at the sky. He was completely baffled, said these things were moving in ways no aircraft he knew of could.
That's definitely something to consider. You being into aviation, I bet you'd find that pretty compelling, too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Was it he said something about the precision and the maneuverability? Like nothing he'd ever seen?
Yeah. He was comparing it to experimental aircraft, even.
And then there's this farmer.
Yeah.
He said he saw lights going down into a field and then disappearing. Poof. But they left this weird glowing residue behind.
A glowing residue. That's strange. Right, like what is that? It's these little details, these weird things that make the Oxfordshire case so fascinating. It's not just lights, there's something else going on.
I agree. Of course, with eyewitness accounts, you always have to think about things like, perception and memory. How reliable are they?
Sure.
But here, there are just so many reports.
Yeah.
And they're all saying similar things. It's hard to just brush it off as everyone misinterpreting what they saw.
Totally. Okay, so we have multiple witnesses, descriptions that line up, and even some physical evidence, like that residue. Hard to ignore, right?
So what did the officials say? What was the official response?
Well, that's the thing. The Ministry of Defense, they said, yeah, we know about the reports, but they didn't explain anything. No concrete answers, nothing.
Basically, they just shrugged.
Pretty much. What do you think? Does that kind of silence make people believe in these things even more?
I wonder. Makes you think, were they hiding something?
Yeah.
Some secret military project?
That's always a possibility. Or maybe they really didn't know what to make of it themselves. And when the government's like, we're looking into it, but doesn't really say anything, people start speculating, and then the distrust builds.
Yeah, it gets everyone thinking. It's like an X-Files episode, but this was real life, in the news, everyone talking about it.
Absolutely. Even independent UFO researchers, people who went out there themselves to investigate, they couldn't figure it out. They looked at all the testimonies, all the evidence they could find, but the Oxfordshire incident remained this unsolved puzzle.
So even with all that investigating, officially and unofficially, we're still left with a mystery. But this wasn't just a local news thing that everyone forgot about. This had an impact.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This event put Oxfordshire on the map for UFO enthusiasts everywhere.
For sure. You see it in documentaries, books, any discussion about UFOs, Oxfordshire comes up.
It really does. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Why did this specific case catch everyone's attention so much? What makes it so compelling, especially for people who think, hey, maybe we're not alone? What do you think?
It's a good question. Let's dig into that.
So for those of you who are just joining the UFO discussion, the Oxfordshire incident, it's a classic, right? Multiple witnesses, strange lights, no one from the government explaining anything. It's got it all. But the question is, why has this one stuck with us? Why are people still so fascinated by it, especially those who believe in, aliens?
It's true. It's not like people just went, it's weird, and moved on. This thing really sparks something. I think it's because deep down, we all kind of wonder what's out there.
Absolutely. We've always asked ourselves, are we alone in the universe? And cases like this, with no clear answers, just these amazing stories from people who saw it, well, it makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder, for sure. And speaking of wondering, Let's talk about the theories people have come up with to explain the Oxfordshire UFO sighting. We've got everything from totally normal explanations to some seriously wild ideas.
Yeah, it runs the gamut. On the one hand, some folks say it was just misidentified aircraft, or maybe some weird weather stuff causing strange lights. Like there's this thing called a temperature inversion that can make light do crazy things. Maybe that's what it was.
But if it was just one person seeing something weird, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
But we're talking dozens of people all describing basically the same thing. That's harder to explain away with just weather.
Exactly. So then you get into the more, shall we say, interesting theories. Some people think it was some kind of secret military technology, like an experimental aircraft they're not telling us about.
Yeah, the government being all hush-hush always adds to the intrigue.
Right. Like, if they're not telling us, it must be something really cool, or maybe even scary. But let's be real. The theory that everyone loves is the alien one. That what people saw in Oxfordshire were actual alien spacecraft. I mean, if you were checking out Earth from another planet, wouldn't you want to start somewhere quiet, away from the cities?
Makes sense.
Hmm.
And the Oxfordshire case has everything those who believe in aliens look for. Multiple witnesses, descriptions that sound like a real object, weird movements, and of course no one's been able to explain it any other way.
It's like a textbook UFO case, you know? And even if you're skeptical, even if you think, come on, really, aliens? You gotta admit, the possibility is pretty exciting. Makes you think about our place in the universe. What else might be out there?
Big questions, for sure. But even if we never find out for sure what happened in Oxfordshire, this event was important. It wasn't just a weird news story people forgot about. It did something. It changed how we think about UFOs.
Absolutely. It put Oxfordshire on the map, not just for the people living there, but for people all over the world interested in UFOs.
It did. People were suddenly looking up at the sky everywhere thinking, what if? It brought back that fascination with the unknown that we all have. And that interest, it hasn't really gone away, has it? People were still talking about Oxfordshire, still debating it. You see it in documentaries, books, online forums, everywhere.
It's become part of UFO history, like a reference point for all the other sightings. And that's important because it shows that even if we don't have answers, these events make us think differently about the world, about what's possible.
So where does all of this leave us? We've talked about the witnesses, the lack of an explanation, the theories. What are the big things we should take away from this deep dive into the Oxfordshire incident? What have we learned?
Well, I think the main thing is that there are still mysteries out there that we can't easily explain. And that's okay. It reminds us that we don't know everything, that there's still so much we don't understand about the world.
Makes you feel small, right? We think we've got it all figured out, and then something like this happens.
Exactly. And it's not just about UFOs, it's about how we approach anything we don't know. We need to be curious, we need to ask questions, but we also need to be humble. We might be wrong.
It's that balance, being skeptical but also open to new ideas, even if they sound crazy at first. We can't believe everything we hear, but we also can't close ourselves off to new discoveries.
It's like walking a tightrope, trying to find that sweet spot. And I think that's what makes talking about these topics so interesting. They make us think about things in new ways, ask tough questions, and be okay with not knowing all the answers. They remind us that the universe is huge and complicated, and we've still got a lot to learn.
So next time you're outside, take a look up at the sky. Think about the stories we've talked about, the unanswered questions, all the possibilities.
And maybe you'll want to do some research yourself. Look up other UFO sightings, see what the scientists say, explore the theories and the debates. There's a whole world of information out there waiting to be explored.
We hope this deep dive has been a good starting point for you, a way to get you thinking about all the things we don't know yet.
Because at the end of the day, we're all searching for answers. We all want to understand the world around us. And who knows what incredible things we might find out there in the vastness of space.
So keep looking up, keep asking questions, and keep that sense of wonder. The universe is full of surprises, and we're always discovering something new.
Well said.
You know, it's interesting, the Oxfordshire incident. It's not like it's the only time people have seen strange things in the sky.
Yeah.
We've got stories going way back from all over the world. Cave paintings, old writings, even modern videos. It's like this fascination with what might be out there is just part of being human.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, isn't it? This curiosity we have about the unknown, about what's beyond us. It's like we're programmed to look up at the stars and ask, are we really alone? Is there more out there?
I know, right? And even if we forget about aliens for a second, a lot of these cases make us rethink what we know about science. We see things that seem impossible, things that don't fit with our understanding of physics and nature.
That's a good point. It's almost like these UFO events force us to open our minds, to consider things we might have just dismissed before. They make us question what we think is true and what could actually be possible.
So how do we deal with that? How do we approach these mysteries without jumping to conclusions, but also without just ignoring them? It's a tough balance.
It is. It's about finding that middle ground, being skeptical but also open-minded. We need to look for evidence, use critical thinking when we hear these amazing claims, but also be okay with the idea that there might be things happening that we don't understand yet.
It's like walking a tightrope between wanting solid proof and still having a sense of wonder. We don't want to believe everything we hear, but we also don't want to miss out on something amazing.
And I think that's what makes exploring these topics so cool. They get us thinking about the unknown, asking tough questions, and realizing that it's okay not to have all the answers. They remind us that the universe is huge and full of mysteries, and there's always something new to learn.
So next time you're outside, look up. Think about the stories we've talked about, the things we don't know, all the possibilities.
Maybe you'll even want to do some research yourself. Check out other UFO cases, see what the scientists have to say, read about the different theories. There's so much out there waiting to be discovered.
We hope this deep dive has given you a good starting point, gotten you thinking about all the things we're still figuring out.
Because at the end of the day, we all want to understand the world around us, right? And who knows what amazing things we might find out there in space.
So keep looking up, keep asking questions, and never lose that sense of wonder. The universe is full of surprises, and we're always learning something new.
Couldn't have said it better myself.